All right, so finding ourselves at the top of our mats. And before we get started, I just want to welcome everyone again to another yoga class. And the way that I like to teach and my yoga studio is Exercise and Wellness. I'm very happy to have this opportunity to be able to teach online for L-Tri-C and for anybody else who cares to join us. But the things to think about with yoga is that really it's all about the breath. So if we're breathing and moving, it doesn't matter if our bodies look, what we think like an Instagram body or Instagram yoga pictures. It's all about what it feels like in your body and making the poses fit your body. So even if you look a little different than how my pose looks, as long as you're feeling it and modifying the postures to fit your body, you're doing a great job and doing so much good for yourself. For today, we have the option of using some props. So I have a yoga strap, which if you don't have a strap, you don't necessarily need it, but some optional things you could use would be, say, a belt or a bathrobe belt, maybe a scarf, a resistance band, and then I also have my yoga blocks, which we used them last time. Options, if you don't have blocks, would be a book, maybe a sofa cushion or a pillow. Sometimes just to have a little bit of added height can be a nice thing, or you could use a rolled up towel, water bottle. So you can get creative in your practice, knowing that it is a practice. So it's not about fitting it into any type of mold. It's adapting it and making it fit how you feel each and every day. So for today's practice, like I said, we're going to start in mountain pose, which is a standing posture. And it's actually really one of my favorite poses because I think until we understand what mountain pose is, we might just kind of like, okay, stand right here, I'm here and I'm ready to practice. But mountain is actually a very powerful pose. So finding yourself maybe at the front of your mat, I'm going to turn here to face you, but first let's peek down, making sure both feet are facing the front. So sometimes we might stand with one foot kind of little to one side, but making sure that both feet are parallel, they're about hip distance apart. So we can imagine maybe placing 2 fists in between our feet. And we'll lift our toes up, spreading them wide. So spreading your toes as if you were spreading your fingers. And then we'll just notice when we do that, it naturally creates a little lift in the arches. So having that lift, which it helps us draw some power up and some energy up from the earth, we'll let our toes come back down softly. So still keeping that lift in the arches and making sure that our knees are soft. So a lot of times when we come into this pose, we think about standing tall and we tend to lock out the knees. So rather than locking the knees, letting them be soft, and that's going to help us firm the thighs, and actually it's going to help us get a little bit taller. So finding your strength and your power here, we'll roll the shoulders back and down, letting the palms face forward. So you might already feel a little bit of strength and power going on here, a little bit of intensity and intention as well. So finding that sense of intention, that sense of strength, and maybe letting your eyes soften down towards the ground. You can let your gaze lower, or if you're comfortable with it, maybe allowing the eyes to close. So we've connected our bodies to the earth. We have that connection between our feet and the ground, and imagining that there are all kinds of roots traveling from the bottoms of the feet, traveling deep into the earth, traveling all different directions. And from those roots, we're going to draw up nourishment and energy into the body. So from the soles of the feet, up through our legs, up through the torso, all the way to the crown of the head. So we're down. And now that we've connected our bodies to the earth, we're going to connect our bodies to our breath. Just starting to noticing the in-breath and the out-breath, not needing them to be any particular way. Noticing how when you breathe in, we create a sense of expansion, expanding through the belly, the ribs and the chest. And then on the out breath, we can release and empty, letting all of that go. Letting go of expectations, letting go of judgments and competition, letting go of anything that no longer serves us. So continuing to allow the breath to flow in and flow out. And as we watch the breath, we might start to notice other thoughts arise. And when you have that awareness of a thought coming in, maybe just setting it aside. So you might imagine that your thoughts are like white, just allowing those thoughts or those clouds to continue traveling by, knowing that we can come back to those thoughts at a later time after we finish the practice. Even if that happens over and over again, knowing that that's really a part of being human. So not beating ourselves up, not judging the experience. Taking just a couple more breaths right here as you set an intention for your practice today, whether it's to create a sense of relaxation or to find some inner strength. And stating that intention in the present tense as if it already exists. So perhaps stating, I am strong, or maybe I am relaxed and at ease. And then as you're ready, we're going to very slowly open our eyes. We're keeping our gaze down towards the ground at first before looking up at the screen. And only when you're ready, lifting the chin parallel to the floor. And we're going to start to add some movement here. So keeping that connection with our breath and our bodies, we're going to inhale, sweeping arms out and then overhead. Exhaling, hands can come through to heart center. Inhaling, lifting, making this movement as big or as small as feels good to your shoulders. So using the inhale to fully lift and expand, and the exhale to bring hands back to heart center. Now, if we're having any shoulder issues, we might choose to open up into cactus arms instead of sweeping the arms overhead. Maybe you just want to experiment with the arm movements. So remembering there's no right or wrong. And we're just flowing with the breath. So using the full in-breath to open, and then that full exhale to bring hands back towards the body. So it's almost like a moving meditation here as we connect mind and breath. And do one more like this. And bringing arms down alongside the body. We're going to add in a lot of inhale, raising the air up. Let the earth reach down to the ground. And then exhaling, lowering that arm. We'll inhale, reaching the left arm up. So reaching fingertips in opposite directions. Exhaling down, creating space through the side body, through the side ribs. Turning our gaze either up or down, whichever feels better to the neck. And even though we're getting a little bit of a side bend here, it's really more about reaching up, growing taller. So we might think about reaching for something on the high shelf. We don't often move in the side-to-side motion, so getting a nice stretch through the ribs. down. So if you have a strap, you can grab it. If not, you don't really need it for this. It's just a nice little addition if you do have one. You could actually even use maybe an extra t-shirt if you had something like that nearby. So I'm just going to take my strap, I've folded it in half, and I'm separating my feet a little bit wider than shoulder distance now. And taking the strap in my hands overhead, or just reaching your arms to the sky, finding a 5-pointed star, we're getting ready to move in a circular motion. So as we're going to move, really thinking about those core muscles that we just found when we were doing our side bend, our lateral flexion, and we'll keep those knees extra soft. So inhaling, lifting up, and then exhaling, we'll come over to the left side, feeling those oblique muscles engage. And as we trace along the floor with our hands or our strap, we'll come over to the other side. We're going to pause here, noticing how we're changing where we're feeling it in the core. And then inhaling, lifting all the way back up. So we'll go 2 more times in this direction. Exhaling to lower, and then inhaling to lift. Noticing all the places that you might be feeling that movement. And then we'll come back up to the top and we'll switch sides. So first inhaling, getting tall, exhaling over to the right side. Engaging through the core, so not just letting the belly flop down or fall down. We're going to engage that core, drawing navel to spine. Feeling the legs maybe. And then one more time. Inhaling all the way up. And then coming back into our more mountain pose with our feet about hip distance, we're going to do what's called shoulder flossing. So a lot of us might have really tight shoulders, especially from leaning over computers and things like that, or maybe our books. So again, you might fold your strap in half if you have one. And this one really does help if you have something to assist you, some type of prop, but if not, we can play along without it. So we're first going to inhale, lifting the arms up overhead. So still keeping these soft. We're finding that 5-pointed star. And this is where it gets tricky, and where we're going to feel it more is coming behind the body. So you might need to widen your hold on the strap and then lowering down. So as we inhale, lifting up. Now if you find yourself struggling or arching the back kind of funny, maybe either setting that strap down or taking that wider grip. Inhaling up, and then exhaling all the way back. And again, if this causes any type of pain, you can skip this or set your strap down. We're going to do one more, so we'll inhale all the way up. And when we find that tightest spot, maybe pausing there for a moment or two, we're getting an excellent expansion across the chest and the front of the shoulders, and maybe feeling it into the back of the shoulders as well. Exhaling to lower, and then we'll just come all the way front one more time, inhaling up, and then exhaling down. So we'll set our prop down if we've got one, and we'll come back to the front of our mats. So now we're coming back into that mountain pose where we started. We'll roll our shoulders back and down, softening those knees. And circle sweeping the arms overhead, coming into a swan dive. Exhaling, hinging at the hips, keeping these soft, crown of the head down towards the earth. Shaking our head no, saying no to any limiting beliefs that might be holding us back. And then nodding our head yes, saying yes, I am enough just as I am. From here, we're going to plant the hands next to the feet. We're going to walk our feet back into a downward facing dog. So hands are about shoulder width apart. We'll spread those fingertips wide. Feet are hip distance. And we'll start with our knees really back. So we do that to find length in spine. So if you find that you're feeling uncomfortable in the lower back, you can either walk the feet in a little closer or bend the knees a little more. And then maybe adding in a little pedaling motion with the feet, walking our dog, letting one heel come towards the ground while the other knee lifts, and then switching sides. So when we do that, we might feel a little deeper stretch into the calf muscle or the hamstring on that extended leg. So we'll pedal the feet maybe 1 or 2 more times. And then lifting up onto the balls of the feet. So lifting both heels towards the sky, pressing chest back towards the thighs. We'll exhale, heels towards the ground, even if they don't make it all the way down. We'll inhale to stay for just one moment. And then as we exhale, lowering the knees down to the ground, finding tabletop pose. So hands are pressing into the earth, and we're in our tabletop pose. So we might imagine, as we first set up into this pose, that just like a table, maybe we have a glass of water on our low back. So we want to find that neutral. And from here, we're going to inhale, letting the tailbone lift to the sky, allowing the belly button to drop as we come into cow pose, drawing shoulders in towards the spine. Exhale, and we'll reverse that. So now the tailbone drops, rounding one vertebra at a time, as if our spine were like a string of beads, pressing the floor away from us in cat. And then inhaling, coming back to cow. And exhaling, finding our way into cat. Pointing up the spine, keeping that connection with our breath. So one breath for one movement. Every time we inhale, using that full in breath to extend forward, letting the heart come forward. Exhaling, rounding. Bring chin towards the chest. So one more time through each of these. So you can either keep your knees just as they are, or maybe placing the knees closer towards the outer edges of the mat with big toes touching. So shifting the hips back towards the heels for child's pose. Arms can stay extended in front of the body, or if we're experiencing any shoulder issues this morning, maybe bringing hands back towards the feet. And allowing the forehead to rest on the earth. So if your forehead didn't make it all the way down to the ground, maybe placing the fist or a block or your cushion underneath the forehead. And we're doing that so that the back of the neck can release rather than letting the head hang in space. And then whatever our forehead's resting on, we can just gently rock the brow. So getting a little massage for that place between the eyebrows, where our pineal gland is. And as we do this, just checking in with the body, noticing any sensations. Always being that observer of the body. So either choosing to stay here in your child's pose, or if you'd like, you can come back into that tabletop pose. And we're going to add in a little flow for the shoulders. So first, starting again in that neutral position, hands under shoulders, knees under hips. And as we inhale, we're going to take a rotation. We're going to start in our inhale, exhaling, rotating to the right side, opening that right arm towards the sky. As we exhale, once again, we're going to hover. So now bringing that right arm through. The right arm is maybe a few inches off the ground. And then we'll inhale, opening up, and exhale, hovering. So again, you might be lighting up some muscles in the core and the abdomen. And we'll do just one more like this. Inhaling, lifting, and then exhaling. This time as we come through, we have the option to bring the arm all the way down to the ground. Left hand can stay just as it is, or we could extend it forward, or maybe lifting it up, getting a little stretch into that shoulder as well. Now, we want to be feeling this into the back of the right shoulder. So if this is enough, staying just as you are, or you want a little more intensity, really actively pressing that right forearm into the ground. I'll take one more breath here. And then exhaling, left hand comes back to where we started. And we'll come back into our table pose. We'll take one more time to that side. Just to open it up again, inhaling, lifting, and then exhaling, right hand comes down. So now we're going to do that on the other side. So I'm just going to flip around to face you. So inhaling, Left arm comes up, and as we exhale, hovering. Inhaling, twisting. So we're getting a nice opening for the chest and a twist for the torso. Inhaling, expanding. Exhaling, hovering. And then this next one will hold. So inhaling up, exhaling, lowering down. And always paying attention to any sensations in the neck. So if this feels uncomfortable anyway, coming back maybe to hands and knees or cat and cow. Breathing now into the back of that left shoulder and noticing, again, maybe we feel a little different from one side to the other. Usually one side is a little tighter. And then bringing that right hand back to where we started, coming onto our hands and knees. And then from here, we're just going to shift our hips back into child's pose. So finding ourselves in that child's pose, excuse me, we'll inhale forward, either finding ourselves in tabletop or kneeling plank. If we're choosing kneeling plank, pushing that floor away from us, lifting through the belly. So rather than sagging, we'll keep that integrity. Back and down. Inhaling forward and exhaling back. So this is our beginning part of our vinyasa. So a lot of times in yoga we'll have an option for vinyasa between poses. And this could be what you choose to do. There are all different kinds of variations and add-ons that we can do. But knowing that this is one of those options. So this next time, since we do have options, we do have an option to maybe add on doing a chaturanga push-up, exhaling halfway down or all the way, and then inhaling up. So adding that in or leaving it out. If we're adding it, keeping arms hugging in, getting into those tricep muscles. Remembering that we want to lower with integrity, so lowering the entire upper body as one unit. So if it's not doable for today, maybe leaving it out and doing it another day. We'll do just one more. And then finding our way back into child's pose, this time bringing hands back towards the feet. So you might choose to rock the brow once again, or maybe adding some rocking through the hips. And then extending arms forward. Staying in your child's pose, we're tucking toes under to lift into another downward facing dog. Engaging through the core, drawing navel in and up. First our gaze is back towards the feet, but now we're going to inhale, looking towards our hands. And as we exhale, taking a walk to the front of our mats, finding ourselves in forward fold. Crown of the head reaching down. We'll soften those knees. Inhaling, sweeping up, reverse swan dive. Exhaling, bringing hands together. So we're taking down with those feet. And we can roll those shoulders back and down and allowing the eyes to soften and close once again. We're going to tune into our stance here. So maybe noticing if we're leaning off to one side, maybe we lean forward or back a little bit, and we can actually explore that a tiny bit. So maybe gently swaying from left to right. That spot, right in the middle where you equally balance. And then exploring that little bit of forward and back. So as we lean forward a little bit, we might notice the heels start to lift a little bit off the ground, but not letting ourselves go to that place where we could tip over. And then finding that spot, front to back, side to side, where we feel grounded, where we feel balanced, equally rooted, equal weight on both sides. And if we chose to close our eyes on that, we'll allow them to open. We'll inhale, bring the arms up. Exhaling, hinging, big hinge at the hips as we come into our forward fold. Deep bend in the knees. And now maybe letting the knees straighten a tiny bit, but still keeping that micro bend coming into that forward fold. We'll inhale, halfway lift, drawing shoulders away from the ears. So if we find our shoulders hunching, we'll draw them back in towards the spine, engaging that core once again. So we can get forward without even being on our back. And then exhaling, hands come. We'll step the right foot back, lowering the knee. Maybe placing our hands on blocks, bringing the floor a little bit closer to us. And we'll check to make sure the left knee is over the ankle. So finding first our low lunge and staying there, or walking hands up. And maybe, if it feels appropriate, lifting arms to the sky. So this can actually be a little bit of a balance challenge here. And if you notice that you're feeling a little wobbly, squeezing those inner thighs energetically towards each other, almost as if we were scissoring the legs. Exhaling, hands come to our blocks or to the floor. And we'll step the left foot back, finding child's pose. Staying here, adding that vinyasa. Inhaling forward, exhaling to lower. Inhaling up and exhaling back. So if you're flowing, we can flow one more time, or you can be resting in that child's pose, honoring what your body needs. So we're all meeting back in child's pose. On our next in-breath, we're going to step the right foot forward, finding our low lunge on the other side of the body. So right knee is now over the ankle. And just checking in here, because if the knee is forward of the ankle, we want to back that up to protect the knee. So you might scoop the foot a little bit forward, and then engaging that core as we lift. So rather than leaning forward or just letting our bodies collapse, we have some strength here. Taking a position for the arms so they might be lifted once again, or we could add in a chest expansion with cactus, or interlacing hands behind the body. Relaxing the throat and the jaw as we set our gaze, setting our drishti. Exhaling, hands come back to the floor or to your blocks, and then we'll tuck the rear toes under, lifting into runner's lunge. Using that strong core as we step the back foot to the top of the mat, taking as many steps as we need. Finding ourselves in forward fold, and engaging that core with the lift halfway in monkey pose. So keeping our gaze downwards, overarching that to the floor. We'll look down, protecting the back of the neck. And then as we exhale, we'll melt, letting the belly just relax on the legs. Softening our knees, we'll inhale, sweeping up. Exhaling, shifting into chair pose. We're going to do that all over again on the other side. Exhaling, forward fold, crown of the head down. Inhaling, halfway lift, monkey pose. And imagining here that our spine is getting just a little bit longer. So we might feel this into the hamstrings. You can bend those knees a little bit more, but we want to go for length in the spine. So it's not necessarily about reaching the floor. And then exhaling, hands come to the floor, and we'll step the left foot back, finding a low lunge. So now, once again, right knees over the ankle. Hands can come to those blocks, and we can stay here with our back knee on the ground, or if you'd like to lift that back knee, coming into a high lunge, we can do that. Keeping hands rooted on our blocks or the ground, or we can walk hands up that front thigh. So again, thinking about hugging and squeezing inner thighs towards each other for that stability, or if we're not feeling super stable, coming back down to the ground, lowering that back knee. Inhaling, hands can reach up. Setting that gaze, squeezing that rear glute. That's going to give us a little more of a stretch into the hip flexor on that back leg. And then exhaling, hands can come to our blocks for the ground, and we'll step the right foot back to meet the left foot. Coming into downward facing dog or child's pose. And then we have that option to flow or stay still. So we can do that vinyasa that we started with, or adding in any other vinyasa. So that might be coming forward to plank on toes, and then maybe lowering the knees. Or we can come forward on the toes, lowering halfway, tucking the toes under, and lifting into an upward facing dog, or we could add a baby cobra pose. Tucking the toes under to lift into down dog, and lowering those knees into child's pose. We'll pause here for a moment. And then we'll all meet in the child's pose. Letting the forehead rest. And on the next in-breath, we'll step the left foot forward. So we're going to start low, just like we did on the other side. Left knee's over the ankle. Finding that stability in low lunge. And only if it's something that you'd like to work into the practice today, tucking the right toes under, lifting that back knee. So honoring your body in every moment, not needing both sides to look the same. So if we're feeling a little wobbly on this side, we might keep that back knee down, even if we lift it on the other side. Engaging through that core. Thinking about maybe having a string coming out of the top of the head, growing just a little bit taller as we reach the crown of the head towards the sky, whether we're lifted or lowered. Exhaling, hands can come down to the ground. If our back knee is already on the ground, we'll start to tuck the toes under and we'll lift the knee. So we're all in runner's lunge now. Taking that back foot forward, coming into a forward fold. Softening your knees, and then inhaling, lifting, monkey pose. Exhaling, melting. We'll inhale, reverse swan dive, and exhaling, flying chair pose. Inhaling, we'll lift. And then exhaling, bring hands down alongside the body. We're going to turn towards the long edge of our mat right now. You might want to have your block or a cushion nearby. So we're going to spread the feet nice and wide. Both feet are parallel to the long edges of the mat. And we'll inhale almost like a standing camel. So hands might reach towards the low back, the glutes, or even the legs. And as we come into this back bend here, our gaze can go up, but we don't want it to overly arch the neck. So not tilting it all the way back, maybe looking at that line between the wall and the ceiling. Shoulders are drawing in towards each other. And then as we exhale, with a bend in the knees, we're going to come into a forward fold, letting hands trace the legs. Maybe bring hands to thighs, the calves, or towards the ankles. So we're first coming into a forward fold here. And just like we do in our standard forward fold, still allowing our knees to be bent as much as we'd like. So we don't need to have them be locked out or completely straight. And in fact, it's preferable to have a little bit of a bend. That protects our low back. So from here, we're going to walk both hands over towards the left leg. And hands could be high on the thigh or anywhere along that leg. We might even choose to bring that block along and place our hands on the block. And as we come over to this left side, you might notice sensations in the inner thighs or the backs of the legs, maybe the lower back. And we'll just walk our hands across the floor over to that other side. So when we come over to one side, the opposite hip tries to follow along. So trying to keep that hip back in alignment with the other hip. And noticing maybe if one side feels a little different than the other. And then coming back to center, we'll place our left hand either on the ground or on the block directly underneath our face. We'll inhale, lengthening. And then as we exhale, twisting over to that right side, looking up to the right hand or down to the floor. Getting a nice twist for the spine. exhaling, we'll lower that right hand down to the ground. We'll place it where the left hand was. And then we'll inhale and exhale, twisting over to the other side. We'll do just one more time to each direction. Exhaling down, inhaling to lengthen, and then exhaling to twist. Breathing here. Exhaling, lowering, inhaling, lengthening as we switch. Last time. And then as we come back to center, bringing hands towards the ankles or the calves, and we'll deeply bend those knees. We'll walk hands up the thighs, and very slowly coming all the way up to stand. So now we're going to turn the feet out a little bit. So feet and knees are going in the same direction, toes and knees. And we're going to come into goddess pose. So we're finding a little bit of a hip opener here. We'll inhale, arms out, and getting that expansion across the chest. Palms are up, thumbs are back. Then we'll inhale, rising. Exhaling, hands to heart. So we're going to revisit that pose, and as we come back into this goddess pose, we're going to add in another stretch for the shoulders. So we'll bring the right arm underneath the left, and we can either give ourselves a big hug here, so big bear hug, or we can turn this into eagle arms. So for eagle arms, we could bring the backs of the hands together, or we can touch the palms. So depending what feels better to your shoulders. So if you're really, really tight, you might want to come back into this big hug. But if this feels okay and you want a little bit more, then maybe inhaling, arms up and away from the face. Getting into that spot on the shoulders that we like to get massaged. And if you find at any point that you're holding the breath, maybe lifting out of the legs so you can release the legs, or you can come back to a gentler version with the arms. So inhale, opening those arms wide. Exhaling, we'll shake them out a little bit, and then we'll do that other side. So again, we'll come back into our goddess legs. Now, if this is too much, staying upright, we'll inhale, and then exhaling, this time bringing the left arm under the right. Finding the variation that fits this side of the body, which might be a little different. And then inhaling, arms up and away if that's where we're going. But remembering that we don't need both sides to look the same. So if this side looks a little different, that's okay too. And we'll inhale, releasing all of that, maybe shaking out the arms and the legs. So we did a lot of work there for both of them. So we just did eagle arms, and now we're going to explore eagle legs with or without adding the arms for our balance. So I've got my block nearby, and you might want one too. And eagle can be definitely a tricky pose, so that's why we have lots of variations. And I like to think of balance like destinations on a bus stop. So you can get on any of the bus stops that you want. So we're going to have our block nearby. And we did a chair pose earlier, so thinking as we exhale, sitting back and down, this is the starting position for our legs, for eagle legs. We can then take this left leg and cross it over the right. So maybe bringing our toes to our block, or we could bring our toes to the floor and staying here with hands at heart center, or they can come out wide if we want a little more balance. If we want to challenge ourselves, maybe lifting those toes away from the ground, but not needing to do that. So just playing around, seeing what feels good, using that block or the ground if you'd like it. And then if you want to add the arms, so whichever leg is the top leg, so right here it's the left leg, we'll now make the left arm the bottom arm. So we might be a little wobbly, like I just wobbled there, and if we wobble, that's okay. You can just get back up and try it again. So anytime we come out of our pose, knowing we can revisit it. And we might choose to spread those eagle wings. We'll stay for one more breath if we're here. And then lifting up and out. How did we do? So we can try the other side. Now I'll just shift my block over a little bit. You might, again, place a cushion or leaving it out using the floor. So we'll exhale sitting back into chair. So this might even be your pose for the day. But only if you want that little extra, you can cross the right leg over, tapping toes onto a block with a floor. And then only adding that lift if that feels available today. So maybe not today, maybe another day. And we can add those arms. So this time having the right arm on the top, so that makes the right arm on the bottom. So since I'm mirroring you, I wanted to make sure I got it right. Engaging through that core, maybe lifting arm away from your base to that spot between the wrists. Spreading those wings, maybe one more breath and my wings are flying here. And we'll lift up. And just a little bit of counter movement, so circles or twists. You might want to shake things out a little bit. Shaking is a great way of getting rid of tension or stress. So if you're ever feeling really stressed, shaking things out, or thinking about when you were a little kid and you got hurt, they might tell you to shake things out, shake it off. So we'll do that for just a moment. And then pull it back. We'll make this one the best of the day. So again, finding that connection with the earth, with the ground in our bodies, rooting down, rising tall. So make you feel like you're an extra inch or two taller here now already. We'll soften those knees, big in breath, and as we exhale, big slow motion swan dive. Bending those knees as deeply as they'll go. Bringing hands to the floor, we'll come down onto hands and knees, and then making our way onto our bottoms. We'll extend those legs forward. So we made it all the way down to the ground. If we do have a block, we might want to keep it nearby. And we'll bend our knees. We'll hold on to one leg and use that leg as a handle to roll onto the back. So we might rock knees in and out or draw some circles with the knees. Getting a little bit of a massage. So bring our feet down to the earth. We're going to come into a bridge pose. So bring arms next to the body. If we do have a block, we could take that block in between the thighs. So squeezing the block. And if you don't have one, not worrying about it, we can do the same thing without it. First, we'll let our gaze come up towards the earth. As we inhale, we'll start to lift the tailbone and pressing that block together with our legs, or if not, just energetically imagining those inner thighs squeezing towards one another as we lift through the belly button. We're creating a straight line from knees to shoulders. And then exhaling, lowering all the way down. We'll do that one more time. So again, sitting up with feet in towards heels, our feet in towards our hips. We'll inhale, lifting. And this time, if we'd like, we can start to walk those shoulders a little more underneath the chest, maybe interlacing hands underneath the glutes. So we're getting a little bit more of a back bend here. Breathing. If we notice we start to hold the breath, we can come out of the pose. That means we're trying a little too hard. Hands will release, and then we'll come down one vertebra at a time. Exhaling all the way down. Now here's a place where it can be fun that if we do have that block or a cushion, that we're going to do a variation of our bridge. So if you do have something, some type of support, we'll inhale, lifting the hips, and we'll take that block or the pillow underneath the hips. So now we're coming into a restorative version of bridge pose. And we'll start here first with the knees bent, just noticing how this feels. And we have a couple different places to go with this. So what we're going to do first is inhale and extend the left leg long, letting that heel rest on the earth. And the toes might even go out to the side. So this is a great way to stretch out and open our hip flexor. So when we do a lot of sitting, this part of our body gets really tight, and it can actually cause tightness into the lower back. So if you have any lower back pain, this can be one way to help release it, especially if we are doing a lot of that sitting. Now, our hip flexor, our psoas muscle, which is one of our hip flexors, it actually starts at the base of the spine, crosses in front of the hip, and goes to the thigh. So this is a really long muscle, and it can get really tightened from a lot of sitting. So you might even think about your leg coming all the way up underneath your ribs. So we're really working to stretch that out there. And to accentuate it, if you'd like, you could extend the left arm overhead. So we're going really long from the left fingertips to the left toes. We'll just breathe here. You might even close your eyes. We'll take one or two more breaths here. We could probably stay here for quite a while. And then we'll just bend the arm, or bend the knee and bring the arm in, and then we'll switch sides. So now, extending that right leg, and maybe extending the right arm overhead. So something to keep in mind, if we're using a block, for some of us that's uncomfortable to be laying on. So you could actually put a towel or blanket on it to soften it a little bit, or you could do this with a rolled up blanket. So there's really no right or wrong. It's all about what fits your body, and that might vary even from day to day. So we'll stay here just a few more breaths. So now bending the right knee, bringing the right arm down alongside the body. We're going to move on, and one option would be to extend both legs now. And for some of us, that's too much of a back bender, that's too uncomfortable on the body. So you can either try that, or one of my favorites, which is restorative version of legs up the wall. So lifting the feet up towards the sky. And you can bend your knees a little bit here if you need to. But this is a great way to reverse the flow of blood. So if we've been on our legs, on our feet for a long time, maybe we've been standing a lot during the day, or we do a lot of running or walking, this is a great way to reverse gravity, and it also reverses the flow of the lymph. So we're letting everything, the blood, the lymph, travel from our feet. So if you think about it, we normally are in the exact opposite position. We're normally, whether we're seated or standing, everything's going towards our feet. So now we're reversing that. And especially when it comes to lymph, it's a great thing to do since we don't have a pump for our lymph. So I'll take just a couple more breaths right here. We can do this with or without the block. We could actually be on the ground with our feet lifted. This is a nice alternative to different inversion poses. So if you've ever been in a class where they do a handstand or shoulder stand, this is a way to get that inversion a lot more safely. And you can do this actually up against a wall. You don't need to do it with a block. So we'll bend those knees, bring the feet back down to the ground. Lifting the hips, and then we're just going to let our spine neutralize back down towards the earth. So if we were on some type of support, maybe feeling how different that feels to let the spine soften back down to the earth. Keeping the knees bent, or we can hug them in towards the chest. Adding in some movement. So we're going to add in just a tiny bit of abdominal work. So really, most of our yoga practice does focus on the core, and our core is really more than just our abs. It's our low back, our hips, our glutes, our hamstrings. So a lot of times we think of core going from the front, from the shoulders to the knees, front and back. But we're going to focus a tiny bit on our abdominals. So we can bring fingertips behind our ears, just gently cradling the head, so we're not going to tug or pull. And as we inhale, we'll let the low back press into the earth. As we exhale, taking a little crunch, keeping our gaze up towards the sky, and then inhaling to lower. Inhaling, and then exhaling as we lift. Inhaling to lower. So what makes this yoga is really the connection between the breath and the movement. So we're not rushing, we're not going for momentum, we're really going for quality here, quality over quantity. And as we move through this basic crunch, you might choose to lift the feet, so kind of like we just had them. Or you could add in any variation of an abdominal move that you might like right here. We're only doing a few. Again, just a little bit of polishing for the core. Maybe adding in a bicycle crunch, but keeping our awareness on the breath. So exhaling as we lift, inhaling to lower. So whatever variation we're choosing, we'll do just one or two more. And lowering down, giving those knees a little hug. Bring our feet down to the earth. We're going to lift our hips up and over to the right side, letting knees drop to the left side. And we'll take a nice open twist. Arms can be out alongside the body or maybe into cactus. Turning your neck in either direction or maybe looking up to the sky. So after all the work that we did, giving ourselves this little treat here as we start to slow the body down, slowing the breath down. One more breath right here. We'll come back to center. So we'll start first by lifting the hips up and over to the left, dropping knees to the right. Opening those arms wide, or you can have a hand on the top leg. It's a nice, easy twist, not forcing, not straining. Taking our last breath in this twist. We'll very slowly come back to center, finding any last movement or stillness that your body needs. So if there's one pose your body needs right now, choosing that. Could be a happy baby, or maybe another twist. Maybe there's just one pose you really wanted to do today. Adding that in right here. And then coming back very slowly, bringing feet down. If they were lifted or wherever we were, we'll come into our Shavasana. So that could be with knees bent, finding constructive rest with knees dropping in towards each other, feet a little bit wider, or extending the legs, letting the feet fall out to the sides, arms resting next to the body with the palms facing up. You might choose to add on extra layers of clothing or maybe a blanket to keep the body warm. So finding that position where you can settle into a place of ease, letting go of any effort or doing, and allowing the body to relax, sinking into the earth, dissolving any tension or holding, letting it all just go. Softening the place between the forehead, the place between the eyebrows, relaxing the cheeks and the jaw. Feeling every part of the body that is touching the earth, sinking a little deeper. Take the time to be beautiful. It only takes a moment longer to do it right. When you rush, you lose your place in your mind. Your balance totters. Your purpose dissipates. Take the time to see the beauty around you. Take time to see the order, the existing plan, the architecture of the place. Take time to see the balance, the imbalance, the light, the shade, the full places about to be emptied, the empty places about to be filled. Take time to see the difference, the contrast, the supporters, and the antagonists. Take time to see how you fit in. Take time to find the right path, the course of passion, and the highest good. Take time to find your place, and know before you do that it is always changing. Know that you have to be changing to fit in harmoniously. Take time to know the intent of others, to understand the direction of the wind, the ebb of tides, and the emerging cloud faces. Take time to see beauty. Take time to know your response. Take time to be beautiful. The beauty that escapes you leaves a hungry soul behind. I appreciate the natural goodness of the human spirit. I realize how easily flowers fade. I accept that life is fleeting and know how all of this beauty can slip away if I do not take the time to notice. Begin to invite some movement back into the body, wiggling the toes and the fingers. Bending the knees and gently turning to one side. Using the hands to help lift to an easy, comfortable seat. And in this seat, rooting down to the tailbone and still finding that length that we had in the spine and mountain pose. We're getting just a little bit taller as we bring hands together at heart center in Anjali Mudra, prayer position. Bowing chin to the chest, and bowing our egos to our hearts. Taking a moment in gratitude for our practice today and for all the ways that our bodies show up for us. And in gratitude from me to you for sharing your practice with me. The light within me honors the light within you. Namaste. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful day.